Hello. Good evening, everyone. And it's nice to see you here. Please do share with us where you're joining us from. MBA in the USA, where dreams take flight and ambitions find their wings. Is an MBA in the USA worth it? Yes, if you're someone who aspires for international career, and MBA in the USA is definitely worth it. It's not that simple, is it? There are more questions we need to think about. What sets the MBA programs in the US apart from the rest of the world? What are the key factors to consider in selecting the right MBA programs for fulfilling your career goals and your aspirations, especially for when you are going, to an international location like the USA? What is the eligibility for an MBA in the USA, and how much does the US MBA cost? What are career opportunities that you can actually pursue after an MBA in the US? So, these are some questions that we will try to answer today. We will also be looking at the application process and what it takes to submit a very strong application for an MBA program in the US of A. We will also be sharing tips and strategies to ace the application process. And tonight, remember to take note of the opportunities and challenges you may have as an international applicant for the MBA programs in the United States of America. So, I am Shruti and I am joining you from India. I would love to hear where you're joining us from. So, please do go ahead and share in the chat where you are located and what career goals do you have. I would also like to take up your questions, as and along with the presentation. Feel free to share your questions. We'll be happy to take them up. I am an admissions consultant with Golis B, and I am an Stanford GSP alum, as well as I have completed my MBA from the Indian School of Business, Hyderabad. I'm also a consultant with the Stanford Seed program. So, this brings us to the next part of our presentation, and we'll be taking up it in different sections. May I have the presentation up, please? So, some things that we'll be discussing today with you will be, why do you choose an MBA in the USA? And we will also explore some programs that rank in the FT MBA rankings, especially the programs which are based out of USA. Then an application journey for for a strong application to an MBA in US, the STEM designated programs, and also tips for strong essays and video essays for the MBA applications for US programs. Hi Ganesh, you're planning to apply to an MBA in the US for the fall of 2025. Well, this is a good time to start with the process. And trust me, if you're targeting an MBA in the US, then this is the right time for you, and there's lots of stuff to do. So, keep your pen and paper ready and be ready to take notes, because we'll also be sharing a checklist of things that you should be working on right now, starting from here till August or September till your deadlines. There will be a lot of things that you have to take care of. So let's get started. The first question is, why an MBA in the USA? When you are choosing your MBA programs, what are you looking for? Especially when you are looking at an international career, if you're planning to take your career global, at that point in time, what are the things that matter to you as a professional? The first thing would be global reputation. The second would be a diverse student body, and then you would have a very keen eye on what are the global career opportunities available to you, what is the alumni network that is available, and do you get access to a dynamic job market or not. So trust me, when you are planning for an MBA in the USA, this is actually some things that are definitely assured for you, provided you have a very straightforward method of working towards it. Global reputation. So if you look at the FTMBA rankings, in the top 40, you will find 19 programs which are based out of US. This does talk about the global reputation that these programs have. Hi Swaim, joining from Saudi Arabia, and you're planning for the 26th August, got a GRE of 322 and planning to retake the GMAT Focus Edition. That's interesting. You should definitely try and retake the GMAT Focus Edition, because this will be a very important aspect for you as long as you are an international applicant planning for an MBA in the US. We'll come to a very specific slide which does take into account the GMAT and the GRE scores that you should plan for. Right. So coming back to our point, and also please keep on sharing your questions. I will be happy to take them up as and when the discussion comes up. Right. So global reputation we've already discussed about. As far as the diverse student body and the learning environment is concerned, hi Nadia, and just started your preparation for GMAT. Well, this is a good time to start looking for the right schools that you want to apply to, and also build your school checklist. We'll be coming to the school checklist also in this discussion in the next few minutes. Right. So as far as the diverse student body and the learning environment is concerned, if you look at the international programs, especially the MBA programs in US, you would be able to see that around 20 to 40 international uh, locations are are represented in the class profile. So this is a good enough diversity for you to learn from and to grow your career and to build your career from there onwards. Hi Saeed, nice to have you here. Please do share your questions if you have any as a part of this discussion. We'll be happy to take them up. And global career opportunities, most of the top firms, we know they have headquarters based out of the US and across the globe, where you are looking at the global opportunities when you are based out of the US. There's no doubt about it. As far as a strong alumni network, again, if you look at the top 20 MBA programs, 11 out of these programs are US programs, and those programs, these are those programs which rank for the alumni network ranking. So the alumni network is something that you should definitely look for, especially if you're an international applicant. And the next part is, of course, a dynamic job market. If you look at the consulting industry, the financial services industry, or the technology industry, and these are the major recruiting industries in almost all of the MBA programs based out of the US. So again, you have all the check boxes ticked when you are planning to pursue an MBA in the US. So you can definitely go ahead with this plan. But what are the next questions that you probably need to address when you're putting up a strong application? Let's come to those aspects. Now, we discussed about the global career opportunities. Let's explore that a bit deeper. This is the point in time which is a better IV between GRE and GMAT? Syed, I think I would require some more context to the question. So please do explain your question in slightly more detail. I would be able to address that. Do you plan to say that, which is better, the GRE or the GMAT? Is that so? Do explain it in the chat. I'll take it up. Right. So when you look through the employment reports, coming from the background that you are let's say you are from technology background, or you come from the consulting industry, or you come from financial services, and what do you aspire to do? So if you look at the MBA programs in the US, consulting, financial services, and technology, these are the major represented industries. So that is what we have taken over here. If you're coming from a different background, feel free to reach out to us. I'll be able to give you a very specific list of programs according to your industry choice. However, if you look at these major industries which are represented across the employment reports, then you do see that consulting, no doubt, is represented across the programs, across the bandwidth. But if you're someone from the technology background, your research should go deeper, and you should go into selecting as to your program list, more than from more than discussing what the FT MBA ranking is like. Go deeper into the employment reports and see where the technology hiring dominates. So if it is predominant at a certain location, then probably that should be a part of your location, your school list. So given this information, when you are looking at the employment reports, your school selection list should also consider the very specifics of the industry background that you're coming from and the industry that you want to go forward to. Siddhant and Keshav Raj. Keshav, hi. Uh, Planning for the fall of 2025, currently preparing for GMAT Focus Edition. When approximately can I appear for GMAT and get a good score to apply for B school? So, Keshav, if you're applying for an MBA in the US and you are planning to apply to the R1 deadlines, which you should be doing, then a good time to get done with your GMAT is by June, probably. Because a lot of deadlines for R1 will be, mid of August to mid of September. That is when you should have your applications ready. By the first week of August, we would expect you to have your applications ready or at an 90% kind of a preparation level. That means you have only July to mid of August to work on it, around 45 days to work on. Let's say if you're building a school list, you should at least build a list of 5 schools that you're planning to apply to in R1. So in that case, then go backwards, calculate it, and I think June becomes a good time for you to get done with your GMAT or GRE. So Sayed, coming to your question, whether GMAT or GRE, if you look at the statistics which is given by the schools, you will see that one very few schools are giving out statistics as to how many applicants were there from who had submitted the GRE scores. But if we look at that number, there would be schools with around 30% representation of the GRE score. However, having said that, I don't see that we have not seen in the past applicants as well that there has been any discrimination against GRE or GMAT. Try and score the highest possible for you as well as higher than the school average when you are planning for the GMAT or the GRE test. So we'll come to the average GMAT scores also later on in this discussion, which is going to give you a benchmark of how you can plan your GMAT target scores. But similarly for the GRE, if you see that the school has a GRE average of around 329, as an international applicant, you should try and score at least 5 points or 4 points higher than the average that the school has. GMAT is not the only thing that the school takes into account, but as an international applicant, again, a certain later part of the discussion, we'll come to that. But as an international applicant, that will definitely give you an edge if you have a higher score than the average of the class that they have taken up in the past. So I think, Sayed, this does address your question. If you have a very specific question, feel free to reach out to me separately, and I will be able to analyze your profile and also give you a very specific range of the target score that you can look into. And by when approximately, Keshav, you had asked about by when approximately can you appear for the GMAT and get a good score to apply. I think we have addressed that. Try and get it done by June. Siddhant, given the GMAT got a 625, I have 3 years of experience and 24 years old with a sales and marketing background. What are some good universities? So Siddhant, there is a lot more that goes into selecting the schools that you can apply to. We need to look at what exactly is your work experience about. So feel free to share your resume with us, and I think I'll be sharing my email address as well towards the end of the presentation. You can take that, share your resume with us, and with given these statistics, we would be able to share a school list for you in the tentative manner, and also break it up into 3 or 4 brackets. Angad, for a person having 13 years of experience, how difficult is it going to be to secure a seat in B schools? So, Angad, again, the point is that if you look at the average, I'll just come to that particular slide. The average work experience for the US MBA class. So, if you look at the average work experience across these schools, you will be able to see it ranges between 4.5 to 6 years. Now, your having 13 years is quite above average. So when you are looking at a seat in the B schools, you need to have a very clear definition as to why you need a 2-year MBA. Are you planning to apply to a 1-year MBA? What is the career situation that you are in? The whole application will become important. Having said that, can you get an admit into any of these schools or programs is probably one question. So 2 steps over here. One, share your resume with the school directly. If you have certain target schools in mind, you share your resume with them, see if they're comfortable with this work experience. If they are, then the strength of the application has to speak for itself. You are definitely looking for a very very small percentage of the class composition where you will fit, but still, it's not a no for you, it's definitely a yes, unless the school says that, whether they do look at this work experience range or not. Siddhant, top of the class in my college as well. So, Siddhant, I think by far what you have given is a good lot of information, but your resume will play a very important role. We need to see what in sales and marketing have you done and where exactly will you fit. You have to look at things more than your GMAT. You have to look at what industry you have worked in, what skills you are bringing to the table, and how employable you are at a certain location to build a very strong school selection list. So, to do that, I would recommend that you could share your resume. We would be able to give you some very specific advice. Is it a good score or should I reappear? Now, let me come to the GMAT score. So, if you are looking at these schools, now these are the schools uh, which appear in the top 40 of the FT MBA ranking. Now, if you look at the score range, the average score range that they have admitted is from 695 to 740. As an international applicant, because you are looking at a very limited pool of applications. Why is it limited? Is because let's go back to this slide. If you look at the Wharton MBA class, 31% of the class is international. But how many international locations are represented in this? Let's say anywhere from 20 to 40 international locations. So, as an international applicant, Siddhant, the pool that you're looking at is very, very competitive. Now, having said that, the GMAT score that you are coming in with is just a number till the time that you are around the average or above the average. But it is an important number. So now you are the best judge to see, where you land. This is the average, and as an international applicant, you are getting into a competitive pool. So try and score at least 10 to 20 points higher to build your competitiveness on the GMAT score part. The rest of the things are your essays, your work experience, the average work experience that you're coming in with, and what your recommenders have to say. And there are so many aspects to the application, but if we are comparing GMAT to GMAT, then I do expect that if you're looking at these schools, then at any particular program, try and score at least 10 to 20 points higher than the average. That will really put you in a very competitive position with respect to the GMAT score itself. With For a person with 13 years of experience, how difficult is it going to be to secure a seat in B schools? So, Angad, now the point is that are you planning to take up a program which is a 2-year MBA program in the US? If it is a 2-year MBA program in the US that you are targeting, then you need to be very clear of how you are, fitting into that program. If the average work experience is around 5 or 6 years, then somebody with 13 years going in for a 2-year MBA program should have a very clear line of action as to how you fit into that particular program and communicate it throughout the application. I will not say that you do not have a chance. You have a chance, but then it is very, very competitive because the you are very far away from the average that they are taking up. So if you have a strong case for yourself, it's not going to be a problem. How difficult it is going to be? It is going to be difficult anyways. If you're going to have 6 years, then you are among the average. That is another level of competitiveness. If you have 13 years, you should have a strong case for yourself. That is another level of competitiveness. It's definitely going to be difficult, not easy at all. Avdesh, if I'm not able to answer any of your questions and there's more context to the discussion, Avdesh has completed his degree in 2021 and now he has a 3 years gap. Avdesh, you need to get. I hope you have a career now, and in since you completed your graduation in 2021, and I'm assuming you started your work in 2024. Wait till you have the prerequisite work experience for the MBA and US programs. The minimum work experience that is expected is at least 2 years. So once you have completed that, then you go ahead with the application process. By that time, work on your GMAT, get done with the GMAT, try and apply when you have at least 3.5 or 4 years of work experience at the time of your application. So that by the time you join the program, you will have roughly around close to 5 years of experience. That is one. Because you have a gap, don't worry. If it is a genuine gap that you had to take, you can always explain it in the optional essays. So use the optional essays when you're putting up your applications, but plan your applications very carefully and very clearly as to, what is the timeline when you're putting up your applications. In terms of international applications, especially for the MBA in the US, you should be very clear that it's not like, you apply every year to every program that you have in mind. You should be very prepared as an international applicant and then put up your applications. Reapplication is something that requires a lot of explanation later on. So avoid that. Prepare beforehand before you put up your applications to your, at least to your dream schools. So if you are planning to apply to the MBA programs, then the first thing that you need to get done with is, getting done with your GMAT score. So get done with the GMAT as soon as possible. Try and give it like a max of 6 months. Work it backwards. Work on your preparation. And I had shared the list of the average GMAT score. So, build your target school list, and according to that, your target score also. You'll get to know what is your target score, with respect to what the schools expect from you. And just get done with the GMAT and then start working on the applications. If you're looking at a very a highly ranked school like a Wharton or a Columbia or a Kellogg, it might require more than just 45 days of essay writing. You might need to work on your profile. You need to see where you're working, what is your work experience like, do you have international exposure or not, how do you put up a strong application. If that is a target school that for you, then there's a lot of homework to be done. So get done with the GMAT as soon as possible. Avdesh, 3 to 4 year gap year, what affect my life? So, Avdesh, in terms of your admission, if you see that you have a 3 to 4 years gap and there is a certain very definite explanation that you have for it, I don't think that should be a big problem. If you don't have any explanation for it, then that is, of course, going to be a limitation for you. But if you are able to explain it, please just use the optional essay and focus on the rest of the things of the application process. Don't focus. You must have some strengths as well, or build some strengths. Don't focus too much on your weaknesses. Work on your strengths and try and see how you can optimize that. Years is not as long as 13 years or 14 years, so don't worry too much on that. We have had applicants with 9 years, 12 years, 14 years going into MBA programs. You just need to plan your application really well and have a very fair dialogue with the schools that you're planning to apply to. First step is build a very strong school list for yourself. Second step is, once you have the school list, try and be a part of that process. Make them a part of that process. Have a very open dialogue with them. You should talk to them and understand. A lot of times we feel that it is a limitation, but it's actually not one. So having 8 years of work ex is above average. Yes, you are anyways looking at a competitive pool to apply to. So try and work on your strengths rather than worry about the weaknesses. But yes, a sound plan is very important. So talk to the schools. Once you have ascertained that yes, they are not very negative about your application, then go ahead and apply. So we had a list of a few programs that we had compiled, for the sake of giving out 3 4 messages to you. One is that if you look at the top P schools, with the Wharton MBA, the Columbia Business School, Kellogg, you can very well see that the international pool is 31% at Wharton. It's around 53% at Columbia, around 39% at Kellogg. International experience at the international students at MIT are around 40%, and the international students at Cornell are around 42%. Similarly, in the rest of the schools also, the list is around 49 to 32%. So we have 30%, 32%. So this is the kind of international applicant pool that you're looking at when you're applying to an MBA in the US. Now, having said that, there are two aspects to this. One is you can very well understand that they do value your international experience. They do look at the international students, as a very valuable component of the class. So this is the diversity that you are looking at when you're applying to an MBA in the US. The second point out of this is that you are looking at, if there are around 300 seats at any particular school, you are going to be a part of, let's say, if it is Berkeley House, you're going to be a part of 47% international students, which will be represented probably around 30 countries across the world. So, given these kind of numbers, you do understand that it is a competitive process that you're getting in. So, having that homework very much in place as to, what value you add to the school, and, what components of the application process they are putting forward to you. All of these are very, very important for you as an international applicant. One, does the US MBA add value, or is it important? Yes, it is important, and it is very valuable because of the diversity that they expose you to in the class. Second is that it is a competitive process. As an international applicant, you have to look at, acing the process. You don't have to look at, just being one of the average applicants in the process. Pooja, is it true that all the merit based scholarships are awarded to US based citizens in the US universities? So, Pooja, I have had applicants applying to US universities, getting merit based scholarships, and these are Indian citizens. So, I will probably not go with this particular statement that you have put in. We have had applicants who have gotten the merit based scholarships, and they are Indian citizens. So, there's no doubt about that. Slides where you showed the percentage of applicants. Uh, Nilesh, there are a very limited number of schools which give out the acceptance rate. So we have compiled that acceptance rate also. If you look at the Chicago Booth MBA, the acceptance rate is around 15%. At Harvard Business School, it is around 11%. But these are from the very latest numbers that they have published. It keeps on changing every time. Having said that, a lot of schools are not publishing their acceptance rate. So how many students are enrolled on an average? It ranges in the program. It can be anywhere from 120 to, let's say, 900 something. So it depends on the program. You can get in touch with me. I can share a complete list with you as well. Siddhant Sharma, sorry to bother with the constant questions, no problem. But would it be enough to get into a top 50? I don't think that should be a problem. Don't worry. You can send in your resume. I can help you out with a detailed analysis as well, anytime. Do we hope for an admit in the late 30s for the full time MBA at a top tier school in USA? Mr. Agarwal, over here, the option is that the point is that, how strong a case do you have as an applicant? There is no doubt that they are taking up people with, international applicants as well, with, with a lot of work experience and in their late 30s as well. But the point is that that pool becomes very, very selective. If you're very far away from the average on the lower end or on the higher end, then in that case, then you are applying for a very limited number of seats. Now, how strong is that case that you have? That will only define, what is your chance. We hope for an admit. You should definitely hope for the admit. If you are doubtful of your chances, I do advise, please go ahead and talk to the business schools. They will definitely tell you whether you fit in or not. Last year, we had some applicants with around 9.5 or 10 years of experience. They were planning to apply to Canada. The first step was to just get in touch with the school and see, what do they have to say. And sometimes they do have a very clear message that you do not fit with the class, the cohort composition that we have or we are looking for. So at that point in time, this is a very clear message for you that, you're looking at the wrong program, or the school list needs to be widened and you need to look at more programs. Now, the next part of your question is Canada an option for somebody with 15 years of work experience? The first thing that you should do is, please reach out with your resume to the programs that you're planning to apply to. They will give you a very clear word. the program that I spoke about was a Canadian program, and they were very clear that they were not looking at someone with a 9.5 years of experience. So with your resume or your particular case, you can always reach out to them and expect a very fair response on that. Rohan, I have 2 years of experience, but when I will join, it will be 3.5 years. How much are the chances of getting into the MBA program? I have 3 patents and chemical engineering degree. So, so Rohan, having a chemical engineering degree and 3 patents is a good talking point for you for your essays. See where you can use that. At 3.5 years of experience, you can definitely apply to the program. The point is that you need to look at how you are working on the rest of the parts. One is your GMAT or GRE score. I do not know your CGPA, so you can also check out on what your CGPA exactly is, with respect to the schools that you're planning to apply to. Apart from that, work on your essays, have a strong story to tell, and we'll be touching on these topics slightly later on as well. So, once you have worked on your application in that manner, I don't think it should be a problem. Gurleen, can we get admission without work experience if we are a full-time student and want to apply after graduation? So, Gurleen, for the option for you is the deferred MBA. And for this, you apply not after graduation, you will have to apply within your graduation period. So, you can apply before you graduate as you are a final year student. You can put up your application for the deferred MBA. The deferred MBA programs, you can get in touch with me. I can share a list of the deferred MBA programs with you, which is the appropriate program for you. Otherwise, you need to have 2 years of experience at the minimum, or maybe close to the average that we have spoken about. So try and apply in that range. But if you're a full-time student, it's very worthwhile for you to get in to apply to the deferred MBA if you have a GMAT score. So plan for your GMAT, write the GMAT, and by the time you get to your final year, try and apply to the deferred MBA. It's like a guaranteed admission for you, and you also have the option of deferring that admission from anywhere from 2 years to 4 years for the international programs. So you'll have access to at least 14, 15 programs this way. When should I be ready with the GMAT score for round one applications, and what should be the safe score? So, Aman, looking at your safe score, go back to the list of GMAT scores that we have shared over here. As an international applicant, try and score at least 10 or 20 points higher than these. Now, these are the scores from the classic edition. So, uh, most of these scores are from the classic edition. So, when you are planning for your focus edition GMAT, first of all, please do look at the converted scores with respect to the focus edition, and then as an international applicant, it always makes sense to apply with a score of at least 10, 20 points higher than the school average. That will really put you in a very strong position with respect to just the GMAT. And Aman, you're working in a PSU with 6 years of experience while working in the government sector. Impact anything? So, Aman, where it impacts is, in the employability part. If you think that, I'll share my email address as well. A lot of questions are coming across for that. So, this is the email address. Please take a note of this. So, coming back to your question, Aman. So, working in the government sector technically doesn't impact anything. What it impacts is your employability. So if you are able to put up a strong case for your employability for the major sectors which are hiring from the programs that you are targeting, then in that case it has no impact. It should have a positive impact if you are able to communicate that employability. If not, then these are some skills that you need to build. So Nadia, I think you've received the email address, and I'll go back to the previous discussion that we had. Now, coming to the application process, when you are applying to an MBA program in the US, you will actually be managing multiple applications. A lot of questions that we have had today are pertaining to, when should I be getting done with my GMAT, and when should you be trying and applying for, the rest of the programs, or what should the timeline be like? So the first step that you need to do, which is, for which March is a good time to get started with, is your research and prioritization. The second step is, once you have your school list in place, go into the timeline and the task breakdown. So build a timeline for yourself and break down the tasks that you have. So, these are all operational things, look very simple, but once you get closer to the deadlines, these seem very unmanageable. And if you have to put up a strong application, you have to make sure that you have all of these things taken into account and very strongly managed each of these aspects of your application. Essay management, recommendations, and then different components of your application. So these are some things that you need to be ready with. Coming to the first aspect of putting up your strong application for an MBA in the US is research and prioritization. So create a master list. When you have, shortlisted a list of schools, you have created your personal favorites as well as target and safe schools, then you need to just go backwards, look into the schools that you can fairly manage in R1. You cannot probably manage all the schools in R1. So you have to give it a deep thought and see that whether you want to put your target schools in R1, or again, there is another aspect to it, that is an early decision. So there is an early decision as well. So if you are ready with your application well in time, you can actually go in for an early decision. However, that comes with a rider that if you get an admit, then you have to, fix your seat over there. So you have to pay a deposit and you have to stick around in that particular school. So decide on the basis of your priorities as to what your schools are, and then when do you want to apply to them. Pick at least around 5 to 7 schools, distribute them across R1 and R2. So this is the first step of research and prioritization. The second step of applying to an MBA in the US is, building your timeline and building a master calendar for yourself. Break down these 5 or 7 schools across R1 and R2, and then see as to what were the deadlines in the previous year. You will have those deadlines clearly. Assume that those would be the deadlines for this year, and then go backwards, decide as to the test date that you will have. Because once you're done with the test is when you can wholeheartedly, jump into the application part or the essays part. Apart from that, decide on the key milestones. You have to put up your resume in place. You have to have your recommendations in place, the essays, scholarship essays, and along with that, the optional essays as well. So essays is not the main essays alone. It is the main essays plus the scholarship essays plus the additional essays that you have, optional essays, the short answer questions, as well as the so these timelines will define as to when you put up your application, how do you plan to prepare for your essays. So work backwards from each deadline and give it ample time, and the video essays. So I'm going back to the essays part, you also have to plan your video essays. So work backwards and plan your deadlines, and give it at least a week of a buffer, so that you can plan out at least 5 applications in R1. R1 is a very important round for international applications, because this is a clean slate for you. There are no prior admits. The applications are going to be looked at, with a total free of any background, as in what industry you're coming from, or what sector you're coming from, what country you are coming from. So you have a very open ground to play. So try and put in as many applications as you can in R1. Pooja, want to ask one thing, that ideally how much time is to be invested in the application process if you are planning to R1? So Pooja, that is what we are discussing exactly right now, as to when you should be done. So now if you are if we are at 21st of March, your research should be done and your GMAT score should be done by June, let's say ideally. And that is when you should max start with your R1 applications, assuming that the previous year deadlines will be the same as this one. There might be a difference of at least, let's say, 7 days, 3 to 7 days in each of these schools. But still, try and plan yourself, let's say 10 days ahead of that deadline. Put that as your benchmark and work backwards. I think that's a good way to look at these things. Soumyadeep, do you think that experience and exposure that you get at T15 programs are worth it given the extremely high student debt and visa uncertainty? If yes, what do you think are some offsetting factors? So, Soumyadeep, it depends on exactly what your aspirations are. If you're very sure that you have to, get to an international location and an international career is what you're looking for, then probably you'll, have workarounds on each of these points. Student debt can also be worked around. You The way you'll thrive at, let's say, an Indian location or in a European location is something similar that you will face at an international location like a location in the US. But at that point in time, the visa uncertainty and student debt, these are some things that can strike anyone anywhere. Visa uncertainty, let's say you're studying in India, you might not have the visa uncertainty part, but there might be other factors which might come into place. Totally depends on your plan and how well you have looked at the ROI that you're getting from the program. If you're very clear of the ROI and you're very sure that this is the place that you want to be, I think these are the main offsetting factors. The efforts that you put in into achieving those goals are going to be important. Good things happen, bad things happen, and they can happen at any location that you are in. So, how well you are prepared to fight it out is something that is going to be important. Depends on, what are your backup options and how do you see your career going forward. Nipun, I have 4.2 years entrepreneurship experience and I think couldn't create best career vision while applying, thus got rejected from the top 20 MBA schools with a CGPA of 330, sorry, CGPA of 8.6 and GRE of 330. So, Nipun, your GRE and CGPA do seem to be very well taken care of. And 4.2 years of entrepreneurship experience is a very rich and valuable experience. Probably, the career vision part that you are talking about could probably be the reason. Were you interviewed with these programs? And what is your career goal? You received received an admit. In case you want a very specific discussion on this, please reach out to us offline, share your resume and share your career goals. Feel free to get on a call with us, and I think I'll be able to take it up from there. I do not have enough information to take up this question right now. And can you please suggest some top MBA colleges which do not have much weightage on CPA? And I have a total work ex of 5.5 years in MNA and my GPA is 6.18. See, Akshay, GPA is something that is going to be important for the top 20 colleges. So, if the top MBA colleges where you feel that the GPA is not going to be important, I think there are more factors that go into selecting the colleges. So, you should reach out to us with your resume as well as, what is your GMAT score or your GRE score if you have given one. And at that point in time, it will be easier to suggest the schools to you. Otherwise, with a 6.18 in BTech, I do not, I do see that GPA is a weak point that you have. Having said that, the rest of your career journey will be important. Please do share relevant details so that I can take up this question in more specific context. Christina, what if you are already in America as a college student and how hard is it to get a visa? I have 5 years experience in real estate. So, Christina, real estate is a very rich experience, and actually, it is, a good. It has a good, very good representation in the employment reports as well. So that is one plus that you have. If you are already in America as a college student, do I assume that you're currently into college? You are not. So what is your CGPA and what is your GMAT score? Can you share more details, please, so that I can take up this question? But with your 5 years of experience in real estate, I don't think it should be a problem. Getting a visa itself, it depends on what prior visa you are at. And also, I'm not an immigration expert. So we need to look into the context of very specific information as to, are you planning to pursue an MBA program? Do you already have an OPT? Have you, used up what other graduation degrees have you pursued? So if you could share that in detail, I can definitely answer this question. So coming back to the application journey for the MBA in USA, you need to look next at the essay management. So when we talk about essay management, a lot of people do focus on the main essays. Things that are ignored are your scholarship essays. You also do not pay attention to the optional essays. That is something that a lot of people work on at the last moment. Then a thing that is ignored is also the additional essays or the short answer questions, which are a part of the application. So given these are all essays which are important for you. So when you are planning your application strategy, please pinpoint all of these essays, put them on paper with respect to your master list. Go back to putting forward your all the essay topics that are involved in the application, and then plan your strategy. Create a story bank first, and before any of this, get into the resume. Work on your resume, create a master resume, put it to 14 pages or 13 pages, and then go backwards to shortlisting what stories do you want to highlight on your resume. Once you have done that, make sure that you are not rewriting your resume in your essays. So essay management, in terms of the timing, in terms of the context, in terms of what stories you are highlighting, what is your application strategy, is going to be very important for putting up a successful application for the MBA applications in the US. There are too many essays that you have to write. You do look at the only the main ones, but do look at the rest of them as well, because parts of your story get distributed across the application. So this is something that is going to be important for you as putting up a good story altogether. And one more thing is that once you have your master resume ready, it is also a good time to look at your LinkedIn profile. LinkedIn profile is just a URL that they ask for, but it does speak a lot about you, your digital footprint, as well as the the work that you have put in the rest of the in the rest of your career. So if you are planning very seriously to apply for an MBA in the US, you should also be looking at your LinkedIn profile right from day one, and also be very clear on the career aspirations that you have, and make sure that it is your LinkedIn profile also speaks the same language. So prepare your master resume, then come to the essays. Don't bring your resume to your essays, go beyond your resumes in the essays, and also keep on working on your LinkedIn profile parallelly. Don't work on it on the last day. Another thing that is left to the last day is recommendations. When you're planning for 5 or 7 applications at one go, you do have to plan for the recommendations also initially. So there will be schools which will require you to submit one recommendation, two recommendations, or an optional recommendation where you can submit an additional third recommendation as well. Do you want to use all of them? Do you want to who your recommenders will be? If it is a single recommendation that the school requires, who will your recommender be? Select your recommenders and give them ample advance notice, so that they know that they have to put in a word for you. Share with them the resume that you have finalized. Share with them your career goals, and also the career the essays that you have prepared. If possible, even the raw essays, or have a discussion with them, so that they know what your aspirations are, and how do you see yourself fitting into that particular MBA program. So this is one thing that you need to start off early on, to get a good recommendation, and also keep on following up. So if your recommenders have received the information from the school, send them reminders, and so that they can process it uh, in their available timelines, and you do not have to rush in with it at the last moment. Guys, if you have any questions, feel free to keep on sharing them. We'll be happy to take them up. The rest of the application components which do get shelved off to the last day are things like your transcripts. So does the school require an official transcript? You need to be able to or request them at the earliest. Try and do it at an early date, so that you have your recommendations in place. Your test scores. You've written the GMAT or the GRE once. Are you planning to retake the GMAT or GRE? And a lot of times, we have applicants who send their GMAT or GRE scores to the wrong school code. So while you're building your master list initially, it's always a good thing to put in the GMAT or GRE course for that particular specific school, so that you do not put up a mistake on that, and your application doesn't get staggered because of that particular part. So if you're planning to apply to R1, when you're building your master list, put in the GMAT or GRE codes there as well. Resume is something that you've already started working on. Complete your resume in time, and also focus on the optional essays. If you have something extra to talk about on your application, uh, in terms of your application strength, or let's say address any weaknesses like a low GPA or a career gap, or something that was unavoidable, use the optional essays well in time, but do plan it well in advance, so that you're not running with the optional essays at the last moment. When you're putting up a strong application, it is very important to be very planned with every aspect of the application. Now, coming to the STEM designated MBA programs. So, when you're choosing your MBA programs to apply to, especially as an international applicant, you have the option of going in for the STEM MBA or choosing a STEM major. So, there are some programs which will be STEM designated. So, that closes, that's an open and shut case. You can definitely go in and apply. But at some programs, you will probably have to choose the majors, or point out the majors which you will be interested in, which will probably be STEM, which will give you that OPT extension. And as an international applicant, if you want to put it forward in any of your essays, it is a good idea to while doing your research, mark out those STEM majors that you are looking at. So if you look at Yale, Foster, Georgetown, or UVA Darden, they offer a management science major. So the program itself might not be a STEM program, but this major will qualify you for that OPT extension. So make sure when you're applying, you are able to specify it in the respective part of the application. Coming to the tips for writing MBSs that get you the US MBA admit. So when you are planning to apply to the US MBA programs as an international applicant, it's very different for different parts of the world. When you're applying to US, you have to be very keen and very clear of what they value. Chandan, hi, thank you for joining us. And you have a work experience of 5 years in Government of India public policy implementing development projects in Northeast. And you're a BTech in civil engineering from ND. What school should I target? Low CGPA. So, Chandan, do share your specific CGPA, and do you have a GMAT or a GRE score as well? Could we know about that? Plus, also, what are your target industry and function that you're looking at? The school list will depend on this information as well. Do share it, and I will probably throw some light on this question that you have. So coming back to writing strong MBSs, when you're planning for the US MBA program, one is they do focus on class diversity. They do value your input to the class diversity. You as an international applicant have a very clear edge because you do add to that diversity. How do you communicate that edge in your essays is something that you need to look at. Hi Shivakumar, you have a pretty low BTech CGPA of 6.3 and 3 years of experience in products for tech startups. Not sure what colleges to target. Not given my GMAT. Can I offset? Yes, this is a very good question. Can you offset your low CGPA with a high GMAT score? Yes, you can. And do target a decently high GMAT score, with respect to the schools that you're targeting. Try and pick up a range. First of all, pick up at least 5 to 7 schools, and then target at least 20 points higher, and focus on the rest of the parts of the application as well. If you want a more detailed profile evaluation, get in touch. You have experience with products for tech startups, so product management is a very specific and a niche area, which is covered with by quite a few schools in the US. Try and look how you fit into that niche as well. Don't just go with the FT rankings. Go with the very specific experience that you're coming from. I do think that you have a good shot at it. But do look at a high GMAT score, no doubt about it. So, what target scores should you have for the T7B school? You have currently 2.3 years, currently working Saudi Arabia since 3 months with a full time CGP of 8.69. So, So we am going back to the GMAT requirement. Again, the schools that you are targeting, pick out their GMAT scores, the averages, and try and target at least 10 or 20 points higher. That is a good thumb rule to go with. If you can get higher than that, there is no doubt that your application will be much stronger than the rest of the pool. So that is the GMAT score that you should target. Please do share any more questions that you have. We have at least around 5-10 minutes that will take up more questions. I'll just be completing with the final discussion on the MBA essays for the US applications. As you have international experience, can I get an advantage? Yes, you do have an advantage, and I'm just coming to that. So, as an international applicant, sorry, when you are putting up your application for an MBA in the US, you should very well know that one, you add to the class diversity. Second is that you do bring in some part of your international experience. If you have worked for an offshore team or you have traveled onshore, that is definitely an advantage. Now, how that advantage plays to your favor depends on how you put your story forward. There are so many other things that come into the picture. When you're working with an international team, you you should look at aspects like empathy, ethics, your cultural sensitivity. How has that changed working in this team? Your understanding of DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. These are, no longer buzzwords. These are things that they are very clearly interested in, and they are very clearly implementing it as well. So, if you have something to contribute in this particular front in terms of your story, do bring it forward. That will definitely have an edge. And when you're writing your MBA essays, make sure that you are working on your career goals. When you are coming from an international background, let's say an Indian or any other location out of the US, you need to be able to clearly define as to how you fit into the international business ecosystem. Have you worked it out? How have you thought of fitting into that ecosystem? Is a particular internship important to you? Is a particular elective important to you? How do you bridge that gap is something that you should have thought about and put it forward in that MBA essay as well. Apart from that, the last point on the essay writing is that answer the question. The questions will come, now the questions are coming with very, very short word limits. So they are so short that you do not have a lot of scope to put in a context. So don't try and put in context, just answer the question. And for that, it's easier said than done. You need to have time to be able to build in your story, work on your story, and work on multiple um, work on multiple versions of your story, so that you're able to put in the best crux of your application. Best time to let's see. Chandan, I have a CGPA of 5.47 on 10. I don't have a GMAT score, preparing for it and planning for a career in consulting. So, Chandan, at 5.47, the CGPA is not a strong point that you have, definitely. So, what you need to do is, focus on the GMAT score, try and see how high you can get it, and build your school list also around your limitations. Your CGPA is a limitation, so build a school list which will cover a good range. Go for the best, and uh, keep a plan for the complete spectrum. That will be something important for your profile for sure. Exams other than GMAT that are mandatory. So the other exams that are mandatory or probably not that mandatory now are the TOEFL or the IELTS exam. So you might have to, given the background that you're coming from, you might have to go in for an IELTS or a TOEFL exam. A lot of places, at a lot of applications, you will probably not have to give the TOEFL or the IELTS exam if your education or your undergraduate studies have been in the English language, if your degree mentions that. If that is mentioned, that is fine. Otherwise, then you will have to write either the TOEFL or the IELTS, prefer the TOEFL. And there will also be a minimum score for the TOEFL. So when you're building your master list, also pick out on whether you are eligible for the TOEFL exam. So whether you are supposed to, write the TOEFL exam or you're eligible for that waiver. If not, then do uh, build in your target scores for the TOEFL exam also into your master list. That is one point that you need to take care of. And what are the chances of securing a job in a non-profit organization like World Bank post MBA? So Pooja, again, go back deeper into the, if you can connect with me, do that offline. I'll share a list with you. There are some programs where non-profit hiring is, huge. If not huge, it's at least big. So you can target those programs. And if you have a strong story to tell, I don't think you should have a problem. And best time to consult admissions consultancy, your take before GMAT versus after GMAT. I think after GMAT is a good time. Before GMAT, there are a lot of things which are vague. You are coming with your CGPA, but the GMAT is going to be an important factor. So come in after the GMAT. That is my suggestion. Shivakumar, will I be eligible for scholarships in R2 and R3? So scholarships, try and apply in R1 if you are really aiming for scholarships. In the later rounds, the scholarships will slightly, go on the diminishing factor. So R3, not advisable. R1 or R2, probably you can have a good shot at it. So, guys, I hope I have answered a lot of questions. I did have more content to share, although I had a lot of good questions and a lot of good discussion with you. Feel free to share your questions with us offline as well. Log on to our website. You can always schedule a call with us, or you can write to us on our email address, and let us take this discussion forward from there. As far as I have another 4 or 5 minutes, I will be happy to take up any other questions that you have. Abhinav has come in with a question which says, I currently run my own B2C company. Who can I ask for a recommendation letter? So, Abhinav, if you are an entrepreneur, asking for a recommendation letter, you can go back to, let's say, your partners. You can go back to your investors, your bankers, or your clients. That is a good list of recommenders that you can choose from. Feel free to share any more questions. And in case you want any more details on the school list that we had, I was not able to cover a lot of slides over here. So, specific to your industry or the average GMATs, etc., we'll be happy to share our research with you. So, get in touch with us and we will send it. See, any graded course, when you're taking up a graded course, it's going to be important for you to offset your low GPA. So try and do that. We have had instances where people have applied with the low GPA, and he also actually did take up the core and math, the HPX core and math for MBA, and he did get into Chicago booth. So I will not say that it does not work, but there are so many things that go into a strong application. So you need to look at each of these aspects. But if it is offsetting a low GPA, one point is your GMAT, and second point is taking up a graded course. So if you can get a graded course which does talk about your academic capabilities, go ahead and do that. If you have a postgraduate diploma, where do you have this diploma from? Is it an Indian institution? So look at how it qualifies with respect to the postgraduate diploma, how it qualifies with respect to the international standards. If it does count as a graded qualification, it will definitely offset your 6.18. 72% is better than 6.18. I think it will offset to that extent. And the rest, I think you have to cover up anyways. See, a good GPA for the schools that I've mentioned, this ranges from 3.3 to 3.7 on a 4. So 72% doesn't fall close to that. So if you are planning to look at any of these programs, then we need to go beyond the 72% as well. Probably a very high GMAT will help you out there. If you do have time in putting up your application, try and take up a graded course which will give you a decent GPA in your last education that you pursued, that will really position you well. When you are looking at the international applications, especially for MBA in US, the point goes, it goes more. You're planning to write the GRE next month. So write the GRE and probably get in touch once you're done with the GRE. Try and look at the average GRE. No, GMAT and GRE are not equal. GMAT and GRE are separate scores. They are separate. They are graded separately. GMAT is compared with GMAT. GRE is compared with GRE. Gone are those days when the GRE was converted to the GMAT, and then they were looked at as equally. It's not like that. If you look at the good B schools, a lot of schools, they are the ones that are reporting on the GMAT format. They are reporting how many applicants are coming in with the GMAT score and how many applicants are coming with the GRE score. For MBA programs, the range is from 30 to 35% GRE applicants. Otherwise, most of the people are coming with the GMAT scores. So when you're looking at submitting a GRE score, then compare it with the average GRE of the program or similar programs. So a strong GRE score for you will be, let's say, 5 or 10 points higher than the previous one, the average of the school. So equate it from that point of view. Don't compare the GMAT with the GRE. Is GFE harder with DS moving with DI section from quant section? So, there are a lot of misconceptions or concepts around or aspects around evaluating the GFE. So, GFE harder than what? If we are looking at, what exam are we comparing it with? Now there is no GMAT Classic Edition, so you only have the GFE. So I don't think you need to worry much. Just go with the preparation that the test requires, and look at each section, from the point of view of what it asks you to come up with. So these are all discussion points where we can go on forever and ever. But finally, is GMAT favored more than GRE? Again, not the point at all. GMAT is equated against the GMAT, and GRE is compared with the GRE scores. So there is no such. If a school will be favoring the GMAT, they will mention it on their website. If they are not mentioning it, there is no such concept as favoring the GMAT more than the GRE. Don't worry about it. You have to put up a competitive application, which can be done with a GMAT as well as a GRE score. I have had people applying with GRE scores, also getting admits and scholarships, similarly with the GMAT score. So I don't think there's any such limitation out there. Abhinav Venkat. I currently have a BTech plus MS from Triple IT. And following that, I have a year as researcher at Stanford and 4 years. Should I apply this year or the next? I'm 28. So, Abhinav, in terms of age, you are close to the average of most of these schools. 28 or 29 is the average. In terms of work experience, also, it seems that you are very close to the average. So, you can apply now or next year, depending on how strong you think your profile is and how ready you are with the rest of the parts of the application. So, when are you planning to write your GMAT or GRE? And do you have enough time or bandwidth from your work to put up a strong application? Have you worked on your essays? Are you done with your research for the schools and programs? Do you think you have a strong profile now? Then go ahead and apply now. You can apply now or next year. I don't think that is going to be very different, but the difference will be in the preparation that you have in terms of your GMAT or your test scores, and second, in terms of your application. Samyadeep, when you are converting your CGPA to, out of four, as an Indian applicant, there are two, three things to look at. One is that don't go with any of the benchmarks unless the school has specified any. If you go to the school websites, you will see the benchmarks as to how they compare your uh, GPA, and they will give the conversion factors. So go with those conversion factors. Otherwise, a lot of programs will require you to put in your CGPA as you have received it from your programs. So you probably don't have to convert it when you are, you don't have to convert it into a GP out of 4 to report it. But if you're trying to compare how you stand out with the vis-a-vis the competition, then you can go with this benchmark. That's fine. But the system that you're going in with, you can always, put in your CGPA as you have received it from your school. So, guys, for further questions, feel free to reach out to us, write an email, come to our website. You can schedule a call with me and share the inputs, the background and the context, and I'll be happy to, take it on a one-on-one call. Feel free to connect and do like and share this video to whosoever can benefit from it. Do subscribe to the channel. GMAT Club is doing a great job in bringing together experts for addressing your questions. So you must subscribe to the channel for sure. Ritik, I'm currently pursuing BBA in the 8th semester, want to join an MBA in the US. I have working experience as an administrative assistant in an education consultancy. So in the 8th semester BBA, I think you are almost in the last fag end of your BBA. So you can probably apply to the deferred MBA programs, or you have to wait till you get around 2 or 3 years of work experience to apply. So Ritik, I think we can take this question up offline. You can get in touch. I had shared the email address, etc. And do feel free to get in touch with your resume, and we'll be able to talk it out offline. Thank you for joining us tonight, and thank you for all your questions. It was very insightful, and good night to all of you.